Okay, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Historic District Commission for Tuesday, August 15th. Can I have a roll call, please?
Christy?
Present.
Dana?
Present.
Andrew?
Present.
James?
Present.
Okay, do we have a motion to excuse Dan and Eric?
I'll make a motion to excuse Dan and Eric's absences.
Thank you, Christy. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Okay. Do you want to remind the applicants of the effect of having just a quorum?
Yeah, so today we're down 2 members. So we have 4 members with us today, which is the quorum, which means that for motions to pass, you do need a unanimous vote on the motion. If anyone would like to elect to postpone their hearing because of that, just let me know when it's your time to come up for the hearing. If not, you can just come up and proceed as normal. I just want to let everyone know that at the top. And if we have anyone else join, I'll let them know as they come in as well.
Thank you. Okay, before we have a motion to adopt a formal agenda, I would like to add an item before the coordinator's report, a commissioner comments. So do we have a motion to adopt the formal agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Okay, by voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, moving on to the approval of the minutes of the Historic District Commission meeting on the 18th of July. Have you had a chance to review them? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the July meeting.
Thank you, Eric. A second?
I will second.
Okay, by voice vote, all those in favor of approving the minutes of July 18th signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? I hear none. Okay, do we have any comments from, I notice we have quite a few people here for the meeting. Do we have any comments from the public on non-agenda items? I see none. Okay. No? Okay, I see none. All right. We will start with the applications, starting with 1207 West Lovell. Would the applicant step forward, please? Hi. Before you start, you have a number of proposals here regarding different aspects of your project. I'm going to ask you to talk about them one at a time,
Sure.
and then I'm going to propose that we have a discussion and a motion and a vote on each of the items separately, just to help keep us focused and to help with the record, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
So my name is Laura Strong. I am the owner of the house.
I'm Lana Escamilla. I am the attorney for Strong Rentals.
So as you guys are aware, a couple months ago you had approved to have the back addition that was pulling away from the house come down. That is completely gone, and we found some good things and some bad things. So the first thing we want to talk about is the siding. So in the picture that I sent, you can see the top half of the house has the original siding behind it, which was exciting to see. So we obviously will scrape that and paint it to match the rest of the house. Now, the main floor does not have any siding on it. So we are looking to get a beveled edge siding that matches what's already on the top of the back of the house, put that on there, and it would all be painted the same blue that matches the rest of the house currently.
Okay, discussion? Questions and/or discussion?
What material are you looking at for the siding?
It would be a beveled wood, as similar as we could to what's up there already.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anywhere else on the house that has that siding, or is the rest just stucco on the main level?
The sides are stucco, the front of the house is half stucco, and the top is a fish scale.
Right.
Okay, so it seems that we have a couple of concerns here. One is obviously installing clapboard would not destroy historic materials present as the stucco beneath the roof line is no longer present. Is that me? Okay, step back. And I guess the challenge for us is that the clapboard, installing clapboard to the ground is not compatible with what was there, being the stucco, and the fact that you have the stucco on the other sides.
There was no stucco on the back of the house. It was cedar shake,
Oh, okay, all right.
on the addition part anyways, it was cedar shake.
On the lower part?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I did not see that in the application. All right. Is there any reason you don't want to put cedar shake?
When I
Back?
came back before, you guys said it needed to match the original, so I'm just
Okay.
trying to match.
When you're looking at possibly adding siding to the lower portion, are you envisioning it would go all the way out to the edges of the stucco? Because I'm just looking at currently, it looks like it stops short of the stucco. Just
Yes.
curious aesthetically.
Yep, it would go up to the edge of that stucco.
So there would still be stucco out here?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep, those
Thank
two
you.
little beams on the side. you see.
got it, thank you.
I know you mentioned you wanted to address each piece individually, so when we're talking about finishing around doors and windows, should that be with the next piece as opposed to talking about finishing
Yeah.
things like trim and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
cool.
that'd be. So do we have a motion relating to the siding on the lower portion of the proposed project?
I would move to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the work as described in the application for the siding on the rear of the structure.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Can we have a voice vote? Not a voice vote, I mean a roll call vote, sorry.
Christie,
Yes,
Dana,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, so your application relating to the siding has been approved. So, next one.
All right, so the next section is the windows. Now, on this photo, you can see the white X's are where we want to put windows. They are both currently doors. So the upstairs window, that actually goes to a bedroom, so obviously you can't have the door there any further. So we want to take that door out, put a window in that's large enough for an egress should that be needed. Then on the main floor, there currently is a door where that white X is, so we want to put a window. That door swing open or swing out into the mudroom, which obviously doesn't exist anymore. And it cannot swing in because there's no room because of where the stove and refrigerator is. So we are looking to move the door, and we can talk about that on the next part. So we're looking to put in 2 windows. I have the sizes on here. We do want to put in vinyl windows. The rest of the house does have vinyl windows. The original plan was to use the 2 vinyl windows from the addition, but they had warped so much we couldn't get them back into squares. We couldn't put them back in the house. So we'll have to get 2 new ones.
Any questions from the commission?
I have a question. The existing window that you wish to keep on the upstairs, is that wood or is that one vinyl?
That one's vinyl.
That one's vinyl, okay.
Yep, and that goes into a bathroom.
Any discussion? Okay, can I get a motion?
Sorry, I was just trying to think who the question should be directed to, you or to Luis. I'm wondering if we know when the house went to vinyl windows, the rest of the house.
It was a year before it went into the historic district.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
I know that because it was my mother-in-law's house and my grandmother-in-law's house, so we've lived there for a while.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. I'll move to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the work described on the windows on the rear of the house.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, can I have a roll call vote?
Christie,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, so that portion of your application, which applies to the changing the doors to windows, has been approved.
Okay. The next section is the entry door on the back of the house. On that photo, can you go back one? There you go. That is currently, where the red is, that is currently an interior door that went out to the bedroom. So we would exchange that for a steel exterior door.
I think the only question I had about the door you just answered, which was about reusing the original, but since it was an interior door, you'd have to get something different. Is that right?
Yep, it's a hollow core old
Yeah.
interior.
Okay.
I note the installation of a new door on the first floor does not appear to destroy any character-defining features or materials, and also that the standards and guidelines relating to metal panel doors indicate they can be approved on the side or rear applications when the door to be replaced is non-original. So. Do I have any more discussion, questions? Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the work as described for the door on the rear of the house.
Can I have a second?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Can I have a roll call vote?
Christie,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, that portion of your application relating to the installation of the door, metal door, has been approved.
Okay. And then the last part, since we are putting that door in, there will need to be 2 to 3 steps to get down to the ground level. So we're looking at putting in those steps with a railing that's up to the city code for rentals, with spindles, and then back grading the property as needed.
Questions?
Question about your, I guess, the spindles. Would you plan on matching what's on the front of the house as far as style?
They're very similar. I put that, I think it's on the last page, Louise.
Oh, okay.
They're just straight up and down wood spindles.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Further questions or discussion?
I'll move to approve the work for the steps on the back of the house.
Can I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Christie. Can I have a roll call vote?
Christie,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
And the portion of your application relating to the steps has been approved. Is there anything else in the application that we might have missed?
No, that takes care of the whole back.
Okay. Louise, I think you have something?
Yep, so I'll email out at some point this week the certificates of appropriateness. We broke it up into so many different pieces. Make sure that you obtain other necessary permits before beginning any of the work moving forward, because you'll definitely need a siding permit, and you'll need a building permit for the stairs that you're going to build, I believe, as well, and then you might also need building permits for the framing changes you're going to make to the windows and to the doors. So it's just best to double check with them to make sure that you get everything you need.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, 504 Southwest Nedge. Do we have an applicant to speak on this application? Thank you. Please state your name.
I'm Blair Bates from Building Restoration, the contractor.
What would you like to tell us about the project?
Well, we think the chimney on the building was original, but it is ineffective. It's no longer in use. We'd like to take the chimney down, showing that it would still exist by leaving it up 2 foot above the roof line. And the previous tuck pointing that has been done on the church has destroying the brick. It's a very, very hard mortar. So there's a lot of brick to be replaced, and the brick itself is no longer manufactured. So we want to take that brick from the chimney and put it into those spaces. Most predominantly on the front of the building that most people can see, because that's where it's the worst at the moment. That's it.
Just for discussion purposes, I did walk by your project, and it does not appear that the chimney is really a character-defining feature of this building.
No.
In some cases it is, but I don't think so. I don't think that it is in this instance.
The chimney's in the back, right? The back of the building?
Yes. And it appears the top of the chimney has been replaced at one time, so there could have been an ornamental look to it at one time, but hasn't for years.
How tall is the existing chimney above the roof line?
Right now, I'd say 18 feet, so we'd want to remove 16 feet of it. And if you've been by the building recently, you can see we've taken a lot of the bad brick out of the front, but we're not replacing them until we get an understanding.
I must say it's a creative use of your materials there to take them from the chimney.
We don't want to throw it out.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Can I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the work as described in the application.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Seconded.
Can I have a roll call vote?
Christy,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, your application has been approved.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I'll be in touch with you at some point this week to send you the certificate of appropriateness over email, and I can send that to some of the other guys on your team too, so they can have it as well. So.
Okay, I'm hard of hearing and
Oh.
with this echo and wearing hearing aids.
So I'll be in touch with you this week.
But can we start tearing it down, or we have to wait?
You might need to look into if we need a building permit or not
Oh, yeah.
for to rent and stuff, but on our end, you're good. And I'll send the paperwork out this week to you.
Okay, so wait until we get the paperwork?
Yes, and
Okay.
I'll email it to you tomorrow or the next day. So,
Terrific.
yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, folks.
Okay, 111 Portage. Do we have someone to speak on this application? Please
Hello.
state your name.
My name is Brandon Burrell on behalf of Sign Impressions.
Thank you.
So we are proposing a new ACM sign on the corner of Porter Street and Amvets Parkway for Saugatuck Brewing Company. They recently moved to a new building. We are also proposing taking down the old wood lettering that is falling apart, repainting to match the original paint that was on the building, which is Sherwin-Williams 6461 Isle of the Pines, and putting up new lettering that says Saugatuck Brewing Company, which we have in the drawings. That pretty much concludes the project.
I think there was something in the application about the flag-mounted sign as well.
Yeah, oh, sorry, yep, I thought I mentioned that. It's a 36 by 36 ACM double-sided sign.
Oh.
It's 3 millimeters aluminum. That's how thick the aluminum is. It will be flag-mounted to the side of the building. There are 2 mounting options. The current one that's shown in the picture is 10 feet high. It would be attached to the side of the building, or we have been approved by Mr. Eldridge to go on the second level of the brick. We can go in the mortar joints as well.
Any further questions or discussion? Can I have a motion?
I feel like I've been making them all. I'll make a motion to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the work as described in the application.
Can I have a second?
I will second.
Can I have a roll call vote?
Christie,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, your application has been approved. Louis?
And I'll be in my standard spiel, but I'll be in touch with you this week then, and I'll send over the certificate of appropriateness to you, and just make sure that you get the sign permits that you're going to need for this as well.
Okay, all right, thank you guys.
Yep.
Okay, application for 1475 West Main, and again, I'm going to ask that we do separate discussion, presentation, discussion, and motion and vote.
Perfect. That sounds great. My name is Angie Polderman. I am with PCW Design Build. I'm here representing 1475 West Main, as you can see. Arts and crafts bungalow house that unfortunately sustained a devastating fire in May. The damage to the house was primarily centered at the porch, but the front 2 rooms, the dining room and the living room, were also heavily impacted, both on the exterior and the interior. So you can see there the level of devastation. The first thing I have for you to consider is the porch. So you can see in the before photo that the porch had been enclosed, we think probably in the 70s and 80s, given the materials that were there. And it had a sliding door as a front door. We were pretty sure, even before the fire abatement crews came in, that that had been an open porch, given that the 2 homes directly west are very similar in design, and they both feature open porches as well. And so once Hadaway Restoration came in and did the fire restoration, you can see on the next couple of slides, 2 more, I think, that the original porch rails were actually intact and spared by the fire behind the walls. So my first proposal is that we be allowed to reopen that porch to be a fully open porch again. That's the first part of the porch. The second part would be that we would like to be able to reuse or keep in place those original porch rails, even though the width the spacing between the rails is 6 inches, not 4, and they are 32 inches high and not 34 inches high. If you have any questions, let me know.
So I'm looking at Louise here. Given that it is existing structure that would be, because what we're talking about, right, is it'd be challenging compared to the current code were you to rebuild it.
Yep, absolutely.
Is our group here allowed to make decisions on code-related challenges? And how do we navigate that as a group? I'm more asking about kind of what our limitations are as an organization, less kind of what we can do, what can we not?
So I think I would just think about it by just considering what Angie just asked you. Does that comply with the standards that I've listed below? It's not about you guys giving consent to do that within the realm of the code. It's about saying, do you guys agree with it per the standards and guidelines of the Secretary of the Interior and per our local historic district standards.
Perfect, that's what I thought.
And we, of course, have a building permit application waiting, so we can handle that end as well if we need to.
And I guess, add on to that there are rail height waivers that are available for properties through my office. That would be me interfacing directly with the building department. It's up to you all, though, to make sure that you interact then with the insurance company to see if it's okay with them if
Sure.
you keep the rails at the proposed height.
Okay.
I just had a comment. It's devastating that this home suffered a fire, but it's also very cool that you found some original clues.
It was very cool. I think it was
yeah.
unexpected, although I think it happens more often than not that if something's been enclosed, then you open it up. But
Yeah.
it was great that it persisted through the fire because it did have some other losses that we'll talk about.
Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve using and restoring the existing railings as proposed in the application.
Do I have a second?
Make sure that we consider what's the bulk of this is removing the walls, I believe.
Yes,
Correct, Andy?
yeah. Well,
Okay.
most of it has been removed once the added-on windows were taken out. There's not a lot of wall structure left, but yes, fully opening it so that the stucco pillars would still be in place, of course, and the railings that are there would be in place, but that the rest of it would become open.
Yep. Just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
it's all encompassing in it.
Thank you, Luis. I'll try again. I'll make a motion to approve a certificate of appropriateness to open up the front porch by removing the existing walls and restoring the newly discovered original railings.
Seconded.
Can I have a roll call vote?
Christie,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, your application with
Thank
respect
you.
to opening the porch has been approved.
Thank you. Okay, so if we can go to page 8, the really devastating part of this fire, aside from having the homeowner's home be ruined and also there's renters who have been displaced, was the damage that came not only from the fire, but also from trying to suppress the fire from the fire department, as is typical. The home featured, so this is the dining room before and after. You're looking at basically the same view. The home had hand-leaded windows, original to the home, both awning style and casement style, French casement, which were completely destroyed. So the ones in the dining room, there was nothing left. And then in the living room, you can see that there is some structure left, but they are beyond repair. So the dining room windows had been previously behind the enclosed porch. They will now face West Main as they're on the front of the house, and then that longer awning window that you see there faces west. And then on page 9, you can see the 2 living room windows there as well have been destroyed, and those also face West Main. They faced north. So we have some issues. So we were just before you earlier this year for 121 Bulkley for an addition, which you approved and is going well, except we ordered wood windows for that project, as is appropriate for that home. And since it was an addition, it was not a problem to wait, but wood window lead times are 22 to 24 weeks right now. That is prohibitive and punitive when you have our renters displaced, and we would not be able to get certificate of occupancy without windows in the home. So we're trying to do our best to retain the character of the house, but also allow for some expediency, although there is some restoration that needs to take place there, obviously. We propose going with an Anderson Fibrex unit. This is a composite of 60% wood or 40% wood, I think, and 60% composite material. They have a very thin reveal, so you get a lot of glazing surface, just like in a historic window. That material is stronger than vinyl. Doesn't have molded corners like the vinyl windows have. It can be painted, so it really is used, and I think I have supporting evidence there where it's been approved in many locations in historic as an in-kind material. So we would work with our window provider to replicate the caming. Obviously, it can't be the hand-made glass like it was originally. But we would have the same light configuration is the plan as far as the grills. And then the windows would operate like for like. So the French casements would be French casements again, and the awnings would be awnings again. So that's all I'll say about that part. So just about the window material on this part.
I don't recall having Fibrex come before us before, so. And I did note, I appreciated the citations to other historic district commissions that have approved it, and I note that one was in East Lansing,
Right.
Michigan, so
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Thank you.
I know one of the concerns about moving away from wood in a historic structure is the way that it ages. Do we have any information on that, how
Sure.
it ages with the structure?
Yeah, so Fibrex is a man-made material, obviously, but it's been made specifically for situations like this so that it does have, it won't age in the patina in the same way unless it was painted, which we always could paint, just like the windows are. And then you would have the aging of the paint over time. The benefit to a Fibrex window over certainly a vinyl window is they're huge just because they are more well made. They're made to be more historic or more accurate looking. And then in terms of the wood window versus the Fibrex window, that is really, we're looking at that 6-month lead time on wood windows, and then still would not have the original style of caming and leading like the original windows have. They would have modern grill styles.
And then as far as, thank you for your answer to that. As far as the way that they are able to settle with the house, I think that's part of the thing with wood is that they tend to be able to settle with the home over
Right.
time.
Right.
Whereas metal and other, wow, why can't I think of the word you just said, the other.
Yeah, vinyl.
Vinyl, thank you, my
Sure.
God. Vinyl windows don't. And so
Yes.
that's part of the other problem is settling. Do we have any information on how this performs in that sense?
I don't have any specific information. I don't have any technical documents in terms of that. I do know that vinyl windows might not sag with the house, but they'll sag on their own, whereas a Fibrex window will not. It will retain its shape more. I know that especially in the front 2 rooms where we will be replacing the windows, it is down to studs. So any additional framing that needs to be done there, we will be doing to reinforce, what needs to be reinforced for the age of the home and just to accommodate. So the other note I wanted to make is that with the Fibrex Anderson windows, they're customized sizes to 1/8 of an inch, so we can get very, very close and use those same exact openings that are there.
I know that we're splitting up the application to different parts, but wasn't one of the things to take that small window
Yes, but we're going to
left?
talk about that next.
Okay. I see.
Just the material first, and then we'll talk about that window, if
I have
that's all right.
One more question about the windows. On page 9 here, that far right window.
Yep.
So it sounds like the notes say that both the windows were destroyed. Just in this photo, that one doesn't look terrible.
It
Can
doesn't
you
look
speak a
as
little
bad, but it is, that whole face took all the water, so it's
Okay.
just, yeah.
more of a
It's-
water issue than a heat issue?
Yeah, I think so
Okay.
on that one. Although I think, well, it might have been the water, but the glass was broken out of quite a bit of them, so.
Okay.
And just so everyone knows, it sounds to me like these are leaded windows. So when Angie's talking about the caming, that is like the muntins on a wood window, but it's metal instead. It's the lead in there, so it's not the traditional muntins that I think we're usually considering when we're looking at that as well. So I just want everyone to have that in their mind as well.
And none of the other windows on the property were wood, correct? They're,
No, there are
There
a
are.
mix of wood and vinyl and aluminum is
Oh, there are.
it was a mixture.
Okay.
And Yeah, there is one window that it was in the pantry, which I don't think I have a photo of because we'll just replace the glass. It's a wood window. We're able to save it. So we are taking steps to save them where we can. But the glass was broken out of that one, so we'll just replace the glazing there.
So I'm looking for a motion relating to the window replacement.
The material of the windows.
Window,
yes.
right, window replacement.
I mean, I think given the extreme circumstances, especially with the renters, I have no problem with the Fibrex material, so I'll make a motion to approve that material as described in the application.
Do I have a second?
If we could be more clear, probably to indicate how many windows it's going to. There's a.
It is
scope of-
4 on the front and 1 on the side. 4 on the west, on the north elevation and 1 on the west.
All right. I will move to approve the use of Fibrex windows in the 4 windows, 3 on the front and 1 on the side as described in the
4 on the front and 1 on the side.
4 on the front and 1 on the side as described in the application.
Thank you.
Usually in between making a motion and a second, we can have a bit of discussion, yes?
Sure.
So one thing I might add to the motion, and then if everyone's good with that, I think we can second it with an amendment. Is that correct? What I was going to say was, I'd like to second your motion with the added language of approval of final details delegated to the Historic District Preservation Coordinator.
Yeah, and then technically you need to ask James if that's okay, because he made the motion.
Yes.
That's okay.
Okay,
Yeah, you could
then-
second it again.
I would second your motion with that added language.
Yep.
I think we're ready for a roll call vote.
Kirsty,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, that portion of your application relating to the window replacement materials has been approved.
Thank you. The second issue with the windows is, as you can see, this house is a craftsman style. Typically, what we see in craftsman homes are either 2 windows flanking the fireplace area that are shorter windows, like the window you see on the left, or 2 longer windows like the one you see on the right. So, because this, the home lost 2 beautiful built-ins, one in the dining room and one in the living room, that were actually incorporated into the window trim themselves. So this bookcase that you see there was lost in the fire. So the homeowners are proposing enlarging the window on the left, since there is no bookcase there, to rebalance the windows from the exterior and from the interior, since there's no interior purpose for that size.
Is that bookcase built in, or is that just a replacement?
It's built in. Yeah.
So it could be that at one time there were bookcases on both sides of that fireplace, built-ins.
It could be. I mean, the age of the home is such that any improvements, I think, or changes in that way, at least in that area, we would not know the age of. But yes, it would be more typical in a home of this design to have 2 of the more clear story type windows on either side of the fireplace than to have an imbalance.
Discussion.
And I apologize, I can't see exactly the widths, but are the widths of the windows the same? Will they
They
be
are.
identical then? Essentially,
Yeah.
what we're talking about is making the same exact size of that window that
Yep.
currently exists over on the other side?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we're just talking about the height.
got it.
And I sent Luis renderings. I'm not sure if those made it in.
Because they came after the deadline, I couldn't
Okay.
include them. But
Okay, that's fine.
my apologies.
As is, it looks very peculiar to have an imbalance and no symmetry in there. I'm familiar with the aspect of the craftsman style that has flanking bookcases or shelves and the small windows. I am not familiar with the 2 large windows flanking a fireplace in the Craftsman style.
So just to tie it back then, and so we're being grounded in standards and guidelines, right? It means that you're probably looking at things like number 5 states that distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property will be preserved. We're unsure of the original integrity of the house, and if there were 2 or not, that also lends itself to saying that a change would be okay. And since it's destroyed, is that what you're saying, Dana? That having the imbalance certainly does not lend itself to...
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yes.
That the imbalance, and I'm just, I mean, what you're proposing is to take out what I consider a character-defining feature, which is the small window and the, well, from the outside, it would be the small window, right?
Sure.
And to do 2 large windows.
Yes.
I'm just not familiar with, I mean, that's the problem I'm having, is that is a character-defining feature, although it seems like the character-defining feature is really having 2 small windows that flank a fireplace.
That is true, that although it is, you see it both ways. So typically from the interior, you would see bookcases or something like this if you did the smaller windows. In the applications where the windows are longer, often you would see a bench underneath either side, an ingle nook.
Exactly. I guess what I'm saying is the character-defining feature is, in part, the symmetry,
Right.
which
yes.
we don't have here.
Right.
We just, so I guess what I'm saying is, however the motion came about, in restoring the symmetry would be more in line with the character-defining feature.
I agree.
So what's the motion currently on the table?
I don't think there's a motion. I can't make a motion.
Okay.
So I don't think there's a motion on the table. That was for purposes of discussion.
No, but we can discuss amongst ourselves to come up with a motion, and then one of us propose it. We don't have to wholesale come up with it on our own. So it sounds like what you're saying is you'd like to see symmetry restored to the structure through these windows. I'm hearing some hesitation on your part of removing the clear story window. And also, I think what's being proposed is that we have the 2 larger windows in order to accomplish the goal of creating symmetry.
And again, not because of personal preference, but because of alignment with the Secretary of the Interior standards as it relates to character-defining features of the property, especially as it's related through the symmetry of the structure.
I guess I have a question, which maybe
Sure.
takes us a little off topic, but I'm looking at page 1, just the exterior photo
Yes.
of those 2.
Yep.
So the smaller window in
Yes.
this photo,
Yes.
it looks like the trim is like cut short when it comes up to the stucco. Is that true? Like
It's buried behind it, so.
interesting, okay. Could be probably because the stucco was added later, you think?
It
or-
might have been. The homes to the immediate west. There's a gap.
Okay.
It's
okay.
obscured, but it's not buried.
Interesting, okay. Because I was gonna say then arguably like the windows wouldn't be perfectly symmetrical
Yeah, so
anyway,
part of that, yeah, you're right, it's tucked behind the
Okay.
column. The column actually has, there's a
Little
little
space.
rail section that you can probably
it.
see from one of the interior photos that moves the interior of the porch.
Okay, thank you.
Does opening up the porch change that at all, or that column still remains?
The column remains, yes. So the window would still be partially obstructed,
Okay.
or the trim would be partially obstructed, just from straight on, I think. I think as you're coming, like if you're walking up the sidewalk or driving west, you would be able to see, because I think it's about 18 inches there between the
That's
column
more
and the home.
significant than I thought. Good question, Christy.
I don't know what we do with that now, but good to know, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
For the purposes of symmetry, which is consistent with our standards, I would move to approve the certificate of appropriateness for enlarging that smaller window.
Consistency, symmetry being the character defining feature of this aspect of a craftsman house.
Correct.
I will second the motion with the amended language that you have just provided. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
So anytime,
Yes.
what
Okay.
you guys are doing is making, so formally, you would need to propose it again, and then it would need to go back to James. But if you just want to say, can we amend it that way, you can ask James if it's okay. And then if he says yes, you'll second it again.
Okay,
Yes.
then I'll second the motion.
I think we're ready for a roll call vote.
Christy,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, that portion of your application with respect to the enlarging of a window has been
Thank you.
approved. We have one more, right?
One more. So the final issue at heart is the front door, the entry door to this home actually faces west. It does not face West Main. It does not face the road, so it's a side loading entry. The door that was originally there was a one light stained glass, probably hand leaded stained glass door. Again, was demolished by the fire and the fire abatement. So we propose putting in a door, a craftsman style door that is fiberglass. Fiberglass, as you can see as my notes, is deemed appropriate by several or many historic areas around the country. And by our own Sharon Ferraro. And so we think the look of this door, I don't know if you can see in your details, but actually replicates some of the details of a wood door in terms of sticking, rail and style, and is a good solid door.
Do we have questions or discussion? So just to recap, the original door was destroyed.
Yes,
So we're not talking about a possible repair.
right.
And the proposed front door approximates a craftsman-style door.
Yes.
Okay. And it is not visible from the street, is that correct?
It isn't very visible from the street because it's a side loading. It's on the front porch and it's actually set at the back edge of the front porch, so it's not easily visible. It's just adjacent to the small window. Yes.
That's what we can see on page 9, correct? That's the front door?
Yes, that's the front door before and after. Yeah.
Any further comments, questions? Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the new front door, the Therma-Tru fiberglass craftsman door as specified in the application.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Can we have a roll call vote?
Christy,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, the final portion of your application has been approved. Liz?
Thank you.
Yep, so I'll be in touch with you at some point this week.
Okay.
To send you over the certificate of appropriateness. Then also, when you already stated that you're already looking at building permits, you've already applied, just make sure that you get all necessary permits before beginning the work.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.
Where's mine? Okay, and now we are at 930 West Kalamazoo.
Hello. My name is Jean DeLifty, and I'm at 930 West Kalamazoo. And I am here to discuss a 27-year trauma in my life. If you've read the materials, it's too much to go over all of it. But basically, I bought the house almost 30 years ago. And after being there a couple years, the house started to peel. So we saved our money and tried to hire Van Tyne & Company to paint it. And I really wanted to restore the house and have it perfectly smooth without all of the alligator look. And Mr. Van Tyne said, yeah, Jean, we can't do that. You're not going to find a painting company who's going to want to burn paint off. What I would suggest is that you hire an individual who's willing to do that, to spend 1 or 2 summers doing that. So we did. So we hired an individual, and he spent almost 4 months scraping, sanding, and his idea was, on the spots where we can't scrape the paint off, let's use caulk, exterior caulk, and I could put that on and then smooth it and then sand it, and we'll paint over that, which sounded like a great idea. Having used caulk a lot, it's like, oh, yeah, that works. So he did, and in the meanwhile, I was working on the porches, the porch was completely decayed, the wood, so I had all new porch posts and spindles made based on original photos of the house. And when we finished, the house looked absolutely fabulous. It was just perfect in every way. And I started working on landscaping, and by the next year, there were little spots popping open all over the house with the new paint. And we didn't know why, of course. And then we purchased the house next to us, and we had painters over there who were repainting that house, 6 guys and all their ladders. And the owner of the company said, Jean, do you want me to paint your house while we're at it? We're already here. We've got the ladders here. I'll give you a better price. And I said, okay. So we took a second mortgage, hired them, and it was Signature Painters, Richard Modris, who's a wonderful company, and they repainted the house. And he said to me at the time, most of the spots, or at least many of them that we are scraping, there's a gooey white substance underneath. And it was like, oh my God, it's the caulk. And I say, oh my God, because the whole house had been caulked. Pretty much everywhere that there was a fluctuation in the paint, he had caulked it to make it smooth, which is, of course, what I was wanting. So Richard finished the job, and by the next summer, it was cracking, or not cracking, but popping and peeling off again. And at that point, honestly, I didn't know what to do. So we didn't do anything, except I think I cried for 10 years. And, I put my focus on the inside of the house, completely restored the inside, which is very, very beautiful. Did the landscaping, did lots of restoration work on the new house we bought next door, and just averted my eyes when I looked at my house so I wouldn't have to see all the paint that looked so horrible. And then I went through a period of just personal traumas with, my husband, my father became ill, and I couldn't focus on anything related to the house. And then finally I think it was about 2017, was like, okay, I've got to do something about this. Maybe by now, all of the caulk that was on there that was going to pop would pop. And meanwhile, I had a garage sale at my house, and this is pertinent because someone came up to me at the garage sale and said, do you know why your house is peeling? And I thought, Yeah, I know. And, no, I'm not looking for a painter. And he said, I'm the one who painted it before you moved in. And the previous owner had me paint it with automobile paint because he had purchased these drums of automobile paint and he wanted the house to look good to sell it. So I just sort of tucked that away and was like, well, okay, it might have something to do with it, but I know that there was a caulk issue. So that happened. So I asked Sharon Ferraro, I called her up and said, is it possible you could come over and take a look at my house because I don't know what to do. I don't know, I've been reading things about things like elastomeric undercoat and various things, and some people say it's good, some people say it's bad. And she came over and we spent quite a bit of time. Actually, I think she came over 2 different times, and she said she'd put out a notice to her national network of historic home people to see if anybody had encountered anything like this before. And, sadly, she came back and said, I can't find a great solution. Here's our couple ideas, but nothing that anyone's ever really tried. So then I went a couple more years and finally decided maybe, somebody can scrape all the paint off and the house can be painted, will hold paint. So I contacted Van Tynen again, and they came out and just, Nick Barber from there said, I'm sorry, you've had 2 failed paint jobs, and looking at it today, we can't guarantee it, and we do not do work that we can't guarantee, so we won't bid on it. So I asked him, well, is there another paint company, because I'm not going to deal with an individual, who would not be able to stand behind their work. And he recommended PMV Painters, which is, I think they've been in business about 8 years now. So I called PMV, they came out, did a very extensive bid, which ended up for $65,000, and what they would do is they would remove as much of the paint as possible. They have now mechanical tools that scrape, apparently. But he too said, but Jean, I can't really guarantee it. I can guarantee it for 1 year. And I said, well, that's not really a guarantee. And he said, I know, but we just don't know that it's going to stick to the house. So that was just first part of this summer, maybe, end of last summer, I can't remember. So then just by coincidence, running into somebody at the hospital, I ran into Sharon Carlson, or a friend of mine ran into her, and she said something about my house. They got to talking about it. And she said, well, way back in the 70s, that house did not hold paint. So I contacted her by text and said, what do you know about my house? And it's on the last page of the application that I sent you. She basically texted me back and said, I know that only what I was told from Paula Jameson, who was married to Frank Jameson, who owned the house in the 70s, and he had said, no paint that I buy will stick to that house. So honestly, I'm not a painter. I don't understand what this means. Everything I've ever painted in my life stuck. So I don't know what's involved, but I kind of have a mess on my hands now, and I can't just have the whole house painted and have it fall off again. So I thought, well, maybe I can have it re-sided, and I called a couple companies, and 2 of them were willing to come out. Most were not willing to work with me because it's in a historic district. But one that I thought was really seemed the most competent and understanding of historic homes and had experience with historic buildings was Blackberry. And they have done many, many, many historic structures in the Detroit area. And So we talked about, and I also went up to Heritage Hill in Grand Rapids and drove around to try to see, are there houses like mine that have those, beautiful decorative soffit areas, and, are there any that are sided? And I did see quite a few. So I asked the man from Blackberry about that, and he said, I would want to work with a painter and have them just really do an outstanding job of scraping, because they aren't that damaged because they were under the, I think I have the right terms, the soffit, the part that sticks out. So they're not terribly damaged like the rest of the siding is. He said we would need to work with a painter who does all of the really fancy parts. But everything else, he felt that they would be able to put siding on and make it look like 99% of what the original looked like. So that's where I'm at today, and what I'm asking you for is an okay, or at least today, is an okay to go further and actually get a proposal and get drawings. They have a computer that creates drawings of exactly how the whole house would look if it were to be vinyl sided.
So, questions, discussion? I have a question. So did you ask this person who's going to side it about any other siding material, like a pre-primed, pre-painted, I don't know what they call it, hardy board, composite, cement board, they used to call it. I don't know what they call it now.
He did. He talked about that a little bit, but he said he did not recommend it because he felt it would stick out too far and wouldn't match up with the woodwork that's on there. So for example, the corners, are right here, that it would stick out and not look right, was his thinking. Because I asked the same thing. I had seen some advertisements for hardy board and cement board, and I thought, well, that's kind of firm. I did ask him about, the areas that were peeled up, and I said, is that going to create a bump, of some sort? He said, no, absolutely not. They use apparently a pretty firm foam layer underneath the siding.
And what about replacing the siding altogether with new wood siding?
I didn't even get a price on that because I was told the minimum that it would cost is at least $150,000, which is just way out of my ballpark.
I'm reviewing my notes here, but go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I guess as a point of discussion, I'm concerned about eclipsing the wood siding, because I think that is a character-defining feature, and it's common across most of the homes in the historic district, and based on our guidelines, that is something we should definitely consider. I don't know, I guess as a personal comment from work I've had done in my home, I've also had a terrible prep job done. That painter guaranteed my paint for 6 or 7 years, and it looks terrible. I mean, it's been 8, 9 years now. So I guess it's interesting that it sounds like the house hasn't really had a fair shot at getting prepped and fully repainted in 25 years. Is that correct?
Well, the first job we did, he did a beautiful job prepping, but there's caulk pushed into the grain of the wood pretty much everywhere. And since the second painter said everywhere they scrape, there's white gooey stuff. I mean, that was what caused me to just go, I don't know what to do other than replace the wood, which I couldn't do, because I knew that's been pushed into the wood everywhere. How can I possibly get that out? And I think he meant well, and I certainly thought, why wouldn't exterior caulk work? It's exterior, right? And I don't know that that's the problem. After I got the information about the auto paint, and then this last information from just like a week ago about paint not sticking in the 70s, and, I think of Sharon as a super reputable person. And she has memories of that. That's like, oh my God, this is just, I'm kind of at my wit's end. I don't know what to do. And what obviously, with the best estimate and plan that I've gotten, I have gotten proposals for $22,000, $27,000. Those are the cheap ones. The one from PMV, which I think is a good proposal, and they described it in a way that I think is they would prep it the way I would prep it, was for 64 something. And so for me, it's like, that's still a big, giant experiment to spend $64,000 and it might not stick. So it's a dilemma. I mean, it's a horrible problem. I actually couldn't even talk about it for years.
It's definitely an unusual circumstance compared to some of the other discussions that we've had about house painting, obviously, and siding. I know one of the concerns that we would have as a group, and I think you addressed this in your request, is that we would want to, before we could make any actual approvals on re-siding the home, we would need much more detail.
Oh, absolutely. As I would.
Right.
Right.
So it's hard for us to have a real serious discussion about whether this would even be a possibility without some of that information, which I understand puts some burden on you to provide that information.
Yeah.
But we would need to know much more detail about how we would be able to especially protect the character defining features of the home, which is always, kind of one of the main guidelines for this group. So I think that before we would really be able to, you asked, can you have a go-ahead to provide more detail, essentially? And I think the answer for that would be, we love more detail. I don't know that there's much in the way of a proposal that we can, I mean, the work being described in the application is general enough that I don't think that we would be able to do much with it today. So my suggestion would be for our group to say we'd like to table this till later, but to be able to talk to you a little bit about what are the things we would be looking at. Yeah. Certainly, re-siding a home in a historic district with vinyl siding is something that in the period of time I've been here, I don't think we have done. And obviously, we are generally very hesitant to cover up wood siding on a, and you've already addressed that in your discussion about the many things you've been through. So if there was going to be a proposal for us to approve vinyl siding, I think it would be probably a fairly lengthy discussion amongst the group. I don't know that I can say this, I would be very hesitant to bring it in front of us without a larger group. Because if one of us said no, if it was this size of a group again, that would be a no.
Thank you.
Which Luis mentioned at the beginning, but I'm repeating again just because I think it's relevant. So I will, may I? I'll motion to postpone until the Historic District Commission meeting on the 19th of September, noting that if it's helpful, it may be useful to have more discussion about what some of those standards and guidelines are and what kind of detail we would need. And I'm guessing, Luis, you can also provide some background on that as well, yes?
On what?
On what additional information about materials, details, textures, sizing, things like that we would need.
So I think that verges into me really putting together an application then.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not sure if I can tell you guys what you would need. I think that considering the gables on this property are where a lot of the details shown. You have the diagonal details that happen before the gable peak on the main peak of the property. Coming into the secondary peak, you just have the fish scales, even though they're semi-hexagonal fish scales. And then there's other motifs that are repeated throughout as you alluded to, Gene, as well, looking at things that mixing wood and vinyl together, understanding where that placement is going to go, would be important, right? I think that standard number 6 very clearly deals with this case, 100%. Standard number 6 being that deteriorated historic features will be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of the deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature will match the old design, color, texture, and where possible materials being the last consideration in the list. I don't know if that list also was written or if that's just how it came out, but it's something to consider. And then the replacement of the missing features will be substantiated by documentary or physical evidence, which is not the case here. We're replacing something that was gone. And I tried to outline all that stuff in the report. It's a long way of saying that I don't think that it's my place necessarily done
All right, so,
for an application.
so if I understood you correctly, Andrew, well, let me back up a minute. I do know that we have had houses in the historic district. The most recent one was a number of years ago on Douglas, where paint just didn't stick. And that applicant was allowed to replace the siding on the entire house with wood siding. That was the request, and that request was granted. Right now, if I were to vote, I mean, my consideration would be, I don't think paint's gonna stick on here. I think that you have demonstrated that, the materials that you have submitted have demonstrated that it's just not gonna stick. My sticking point is vinyl. And so I think am in line with Andrew that I would need a lot more information about the vinyl, and I would also like some more information about the, why the consideration of cement board was rejected. Because I know we have approved the use of those, I'm saying cement board, that's probably not the right word, but the composites as opposed to wood. We have approved composites. So I just would like to see more information on that.
Sure. And you know what, the thing for me is, I've had trouble getting, I think BlackBerry actually would be fine, and I could probably just deal with them. But normally, I would want to have at least 2 companies to talk to. But they don't want to talk to me. And so I'd like to be able to say, I've been given authorization to get more information and a full proposal, and the commission will seriously consider it. In other words, I can't blame them. This is going to take them probably 20 hours of somebody's time, maybe more, just to prepare a proposal and drawings and then be here at a meeting. So that's really what my request is would you be willing, with the provisions that Dana and the rest of you are suggesting, that they come prepared to talk about what are the other options, and why or why not are you recommending what you're recommending? And personally, I would be also wanting to visit and to take photographs of some of the other historic homes they've done, so that I feel okay about it. So to me, that's another piece that just hasn't been done yet.
I just want to be clear that there are 3 avenues that you all, I believe, can take, and that is approval, postponement, or denial. And I never want anyone to assume that we would not consider an application wholeheartedly, so I don't think it would be appropriate for you guys to make a motion suggesting that you would take further steps seriously, because I think that we take every case very seriously. So I'm not sure that sending that along with the applicant would be an appropriate measure for you all to take, because I think that it would suggest that there was some level of lack of seriousness that was implied before. And I think that we obviously look at every case impartially and very seriously. in my opinion. So I just wanted to say that before moving on.
So this application has been postponed a couple times already. Can it be postponed by the commission, or are we running up against some deadline?
So as long as there is an agreement in writing between either the commission or myself and the applicant, then it can continue to be postponed.
So one possible outcome would be an agreement between the applicant and the commission to postpone consideration of the application to the September meeting, with the understanding that more information about the options for re-siding this building would be forthcoming from the applicant. That would be a possible outcome.
Yeah, so for the postponement, I think that you guys could list things that you would like to see for the application, which it sounds like you all know things that you would like to see, and I do not think that list needs to be exhaustive, and I think you could put into that motion that this is not an all-encompassing list of things that we'd like to see. I also want to say that I know that I talked about it before, but I would say that we will postpone until the next meeting, because I know that we're going to have some scheduling conflicts coming up in the September meeting, so just saying until the next meeting, we'll make sure that we get it onto the next meeting. We will still have to get it in writing anyways, between myself and the applicant, because we don't have any writing prepared here right now, and that is the binding. Postponement needs to be agreed upon in writing.
Do we have a motion? I mean, I guess the other option, so if we denied this at this point, you know, in the law, it's sort of denial without prejudice. We deny it without prejudice for her to bring it again with more details.
I don't find that to be an appropriate mode. You could, there's nothing in our ordinance that says that you're not allowed to bring something back right away. If you all want more information, then in my opinion, the most appropriate road would be postponement instead of denial, because you're not, if there's more information sought, then postponing until that information can be provided seems like it's more appropriate than looking for an outright denial.
Thank you for your guidance. I think we're all thinking right now. Formulating
Me too.
and thinking right now. We're thinking, we're not. So if you would give us a couple minutes.
And as I'm thinking, I'm going to discuss with my colleagues here. So thinking about specifically Secretary of the Interior Standards, number 6, which is, I think, the focus of our discussion right now, which is the one that was just quoted about deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of distinctive features, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. It feels like that's sort of, am I correct in saying that's kind of the focus of our challenge here as far as requesting additional information and materials?
I would agree with that.
Yes.
I think there are other considerations too, but that is certainly one of them. Number 2 states that the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alterations of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property shall be avoided. Number 5 is that distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property will be preserved. Number 9 is that new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, or spatial relationships that characterize a property, amongst other things. So it's the interplay of them all. Number 6 was deals with looking at replacing things rather than repairing them. And then other people also spoke to other parts of the character-defining features that are inherent in the wood siding. So we can get them up on the screen as well if you guys would like them up there.
I thought it was appropriate to talk through them really quickly, because I think part of what you've been asking us is what are we going to be looking for when you bring this back to us?
Great.
Those are the things we're going to be looking for. And I don't know that we've done this before, but would it be appropriate to provide the applicant with some of those standards that we are going to be using? I mean, they're publicly available, but noting specifically which ones we have referenced in this meeting.
So they're also always spelled out in full in the application, and that's where I write my reports, is underneath those things. You can continue to cite them if you would like, but they have been already referenced if you guys want to use those for further guidance.
Okay, that's helpful because I've actually not seen what they end up receiving. So as far as the conversations that you may end up then having with contractors in order to get the additional information that we are requesting, those are the guidelines that we have to follow. So if it's helpful for them to be able to see those, and I don't know if that's already been part of the discussion, but maybe that can help move the conversation forward.
Yes, right. I think that would be extremely helpful.
And then for the next time, if we postpone this, we would want to see a list of certain options then besides just vinyl. Is that right? Am I correct in assuming everybody else is?
I think it'd be a very different discussion if there was more than just the vinyl option, but I don't know that that's necessarily, I mean, we could request an option other than vinyl, but if what the proposal is vinyl is what you are proposing, if vinyl is the proposal, we would need to see how are those character defining features going to be protected, and how is the changed material and the essentially obstruction or destruction of the original material going to be able to comply with these standards.
Right. Okay, I'm going to disagree with Andrew. I personally would like to see that articulation of how the replacement material will match the old in design, color, texture, other visual qualities. I would like to see that with respect to vinyl and other non-vinyl materials.
Okay, did somebody catch all of that and feel confident about making an actual motion? Because we've got a lot of stuff we want to cover in this motion. So I think maybe, I think we have I agree with you.
Do we want to take a minute and write this down before?
Yeah, we could talk through it maybe.
That's probably not a bad
Okay,
idea.
first, sounds like we're probably going to ask to postpone.
To the next meeting.
Okay,
and
in
direct
September.
the applicant to provide, we're just going to say next
Next
meeting in
meeting.
case of
Okay.
scheduling.
Okay.
So I've got that part. I will write.
I guess we're seeking further details, more information regarding options to repair or replace the siding, perhaps?
And I think at this point, I wouldn't get terribly wrapped up if I was you guys, because of what it sounds to me like, if you guys are going to make a postponement motion, correct? Is that you guys are looking to postpone for more information. As I said before, you guys don't need to be all-encompassing in the list that you provide to Jean right now, but there are certainly things that are on your mind right now that you guys are considering that you would like more information about, correct? So I would list those things out when you're asking for more information, so it's on the postponement notice. If the postponement is motioned and passed, that I would then send to Jean. And there are certainly other things that I think will come up just logistically with a project of this nature anyways. So if there are things that are for the consideration of this, such as the concealment of the character-defining features, considerations of other materials, and I think that those are the two that it sounds like I've heard, right? You could just list that with the postponement if that is the route that you choose to take.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you want to talk it out, or you got it?
Let's see. Okay. So I'm going to say what I have, and if that sounds good, then I will make a motion so that we don't go through this multiple times.
And you could just make the motion and then someone could amend it as well.
Okay, we can do that. How about that? So I'm going to move that we postpone to the next meeting, and we've directed the applicant to provide further details regarding options to repair or replace the siding, including consideration of other materials, sizing, texture, and concealment of character-defining features. Does that sound like what we're asking for?
I second the motion.
Can we have a roll call vote?
Christie,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay, so they have
Okay.
postponed the application until hearing at the next meeting. We need to figure out what's going to happen in September because I'll be out of town. Or when the next meeting will be at this time quite yet, but I'll be in touch with you. Tomorrow I'll send you an email so we can confirm that the extension of the postponement is still okay with you, and we'll continue that dialogue. And I'll also write up everything that Andrew just listed in the motion, so you have it as well. So when you're working with contractors, you know the additional information that is sought by this commission.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think we're on the same page in what we want in the end. And this, taking it seriously and being willing to consider at the next meeting, I think is going to help me get various other contractors so I can at least know that I have the very best person to do the job. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I added an agenda item, commissioners' comments, and I did that because I have received a number of inquiries about some activity that's going on, some buildings on Park Street, and I asked Louis if he would bring us up to speed or at least share what might be going on and what might the implications be for our commission, the Historic Commission.
And do you know the addresses of the
922 Kalamazoo Avenue and 904 Kalamazoo Avenue.
Yep, so if you guys remember a couple months ago, there was an egress window that was added on the north side of 922 South Park Street, Kalamazoo. That one was reviewed administratively by myself, and that was the only work that was included in the application that I approved thus far for that property. Was the installation of the egress window. The north side of the building is not the street-facing facade of the property, because that house faces east, so it's on the side. And we've done other egress windows, or I've done other egress window installations before, as long as they're not on the primary facade of the building or the street-facing facade of the building administratively. I think there are some other concerns with the property as well that I have been looking at. So
was that property at 922 was recently purchased?
yes.
So is it still our practice to send to the registered owner, or the purchaser, taxpayer, owner, agent, whoever's on that list, the information about it being in an historic district with the reminder that any exterior work needs to be approved by either a coordinator or the commission?
Yes. And letters are only effective if they reach the recipient as well. I will add, if they get bounced back, then obviously then the person won't be able to read it.
Is there
another consideration?
Is there an option about posting that on the door of the premises? So anybody, like we post stop work orders, we post permits on the doors. Could we post a reminder notice, any exterior work on this property must be approved by either the Historic District Commission or the Historic District Commission coordinator?
I would need to double check, but off the top of my head, I would probably say no.
That you can't do that?
I don't think that would be appropriate in my opinion.
What? Okay, but we have people who are doing work on this who are not.
And on that property, I will reiterate that all of the work that I've seen so far, barring one, there were screens that were not put on the blind stop, which is, I don't know if that's underneath our standards or guidelines in our local historic district document. Other than that, the work that I've seen on the exterior of the property has been approved through my office.
I guess what I'm asking is, we try to notify the owner.
Yes.
Right, and sometimes the owner might not be notified because they don't have a good mailing address, because we email it and it bounces back. What I'm suggesting is we find a better way to make sure that the owner, especially out-of-town owners, because I looked at the register or the tax records, and one owner is listed in Matawan, and the other owner is listed in, which is an investment company in Utah. So we need to get them the information, or whoever's doing the work on it needs to know. If it's a contractor, a subcontractor, a general contractor, needs to know that.
And so I would just say too that when they did put in the egress window, they did reach out to me. So obviously they must know to some degree, right?
Okay.
The thing about the screens, again, I just don't know if that is something, putting screens into the trim on the outside of the window as opposed to mounting them on the blind stop, is something that's expressly stated in our standards and guidelines as being a violation.
No, it's not. I don't think it's necessarily listed as being a violation, but it is work on the exterior of the house. And I thought that all work on the exterior of the house either had to be approved by you as a coordinator or the commission. So there's not a question of whether it's a violation, it's a question of, do they understand if they do something on the exterior of the house, who they have to check with before they do it?
Yep, and I agree with that. From them coming to me before, I guess I would think that they do. And then my next question would be, were there storms up on the windows before that they remounted inappropriately?
Right? I mean, that's why before they do the work, they're supposed to notify somebody in some way, either you or they're supposed to file an application with the commission. I mean, that, I'm pretty distressed that they don't seem to understand that, and I'm just trying to look to you as the coordinator for some suggestions as to how we get that message across. I would hate for there to be some more glaring issue happen and they come before us after the fact. So that's with 922, and then now on 904, what's going on with 904?
They replaced the decking and the stairs on the property, and they did not apply, but it looks like they did the work according to the standards and guidelines. So I will have them fill out an application for that work, because that was obviously a highly visual change on the property. I will say that another thing that comes into this too is that a big way that I can be able to check work is if a building permit is required. Obviously, that's a big way for me to be able to know if work is happening.
I agree.
Work that does not need a building permit, such as redecking or retreading or re-risering stairs, then it's up to me to catch, or other people to say to me and catch. So that one, assuming that they did not replace any of the structural members on the porch, would not require a building permit at all.
Okay.
But I will send them notice that they need to complete an application for the replacement of the decking and the stairs on the property.
Okay.
Is that something that you would typically approve administratively? Or, okay, I was just wondering, like, out of principle, because I hear you, Dana, it's a scary slippery slope we can walk if, one person gets away with it and then they're like, oh, we got away with that, I'll try another project. Do we have authority to ask them to come with that retroactive application, even though you would have approved it administratively, just to kind of
I didn't
make a
say
point?
that I would have approved it.
Okay,
I guess I would say I would review that administratively.
correct. If you would review it administratively, could we, in this instance, to Dana's point, to try to make it clear about the process, ask them to bring it to the commission? Or is that an overstep?
I think we could always ask.
Yeah, and so that's why I provide the list. Per the ordinance, things that do not change the exterior appearance of a property are not even classified as work, one. So I think that becomes a gray area very quickly, right? Because if they change something on the property and now it's not painted, yes, that changes the exterior visual appearance of it. But once it becomes painted again, does it change the exterior visual appearance? Two, minor classes of work that are specified under the standards can be administratively reviewed by myself. Things such as repairing deck boards are underneath the standards and guidelines right now. So just falls into the administrative realm, if that answers the question.
Any other questions?
These two properties are on Park Street, is that right?
Park Street, yeah.
Okay. Different owners or same owner?
Different owners. The 922 has two, and part of my concern is 922 has two out-of-town people associated with the property. The out-of-town investor is in Utah, and the out-of-town Michigan agent is in Mattawan. So none of them are in Kalamazoo, and it would be unfair of me to assume that they know what the guidelines and restrictions and procedures are in Kalamazoo unless we have provided that to them. And what I'm hearing from Lewis is that maybe we tried to provide it to them, but it was unsuccessful.
So I can't remember if the letter got to them, and it's not the first property that they've purchased in the historic district either. So
Okay.
I can't say for certain.
So maybe I can assume they know.
I only said that because there are times when people do not
Sometimes.
have an appropriate address listed, and I try to send them a letter and I get it back. So I can't recall off the top of my head if that was the situation with these folks.
Okay. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak?
So the public
Comment is after this, right?
speaking did close already.
Oh, I didn't close it.
For the earlier, we passed it already. The public comment section.
That was the first.
That was for items not on the agenda. Anybody who wanted to speak on an item not on the agenda, this is an item that's on the agenda.
Okay, yes.
So there is an opportunity for a public. Okay.
Will you come up front? And then Casey, will you put 3 minutes on the clock? Yep, at the podium.
Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Sally Reynolds. I live on Park Street.
Or you can just run it down and see if it has 3 minutes. So you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, I, in the past, when work is to be done in that historic district, there was a little sign put on the front so that if someone, like if I were driving by, I would know that that work has been authorized. Is that no longer
No,
a procedure?
Still mail them out to folks.
But it's supposed to be posted on the front of the house.
Yep, and if they don't put it up, I don't know what to say to a person if they don't put up the sign, but I still do mail them out to either the contractor or the owner, whoever's closer, because that makes more sense to me.
Okay, so if there's no sign and there's work being done, I just have to call you?
You certainly can. It's not an official record, really more of it's not something that's required in the ordinance, so it's really more of a courtesy to give them the sign.
Okay. Projects like that do impact the rest of the neighborhood, which is why I was asking. Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, so now we're on to the coordinator's report.
Yep. So there weren't a lot of administrative reviews between the last meeting and this meeting. Only 5 of them: a fence, garage door replacements, rear deck repairs, rear stair rebuild, and soft and fascia repairs. We're up to 23 administrative reviews without a permit required. 24 administrative reviews with a building permit or some other kind of permit associated with. They must all be building permits because siding permits need to come to us, and then 26 hearings at this point for a total of 73 total hearings this year. So pretty sure that we'll go over the amount that we had last year because we had 100 total cases last year. Not cases just for the HDC, but cases in total. The next page is the list of letters that I did send out.
I got behind. So this is the grouping together for June and July. I think there were 25 letters that did go out to folks. And that's pretty much it.
That's it?
Yep.
Any additional questions, comments by commissioners? Any motion for adjournment?
I move that we adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. I hear none. Meeting is adjourned.